Jared, hello and welcome to the Beyond Possible podcast.
Thank you very much. Excited to be doing this. This is really cool.
Yes, I'm happy, so happy to have you here because we have a connection from my past life, and not literally, not in terms of reincarnation, but like this lifetime. I knew you when I had completely different business, and you were a client, and it was many years ago, and then. Yeah, we just happen to reconnect. We'll tell people more about how we reconnected. But I'm at the beginning of the podcast. Your guest number five for you, it's the first podcast interview that you're doing. How are you
And
feeling?
congratulate yourself on that because how many people don't even take the action to start? They get so bound down in the details and the perfectionism and everything where it's like you're not worried about equipment, you're not worried about video, audio, or anything like that. You just wanted to do something, put something out there, put some value out for people, and you just wanted to get started and learn from there. So, congrats on that. That itself is a win.
Thank you, thank you. Yeah, it was on my whiteboard for like a year. Like I want to do it, but overthinking obviously was not making it happen. And then just one day I was like, I'm just gonna do it. I don't need equipment. I don't need to edit. I'll just have to start doing it, and then we'll figure it out. And yeah, yeah. But you were a podcast host before.
That was another lifetime. Talking about another lifetimes. Yeah, no, I think I only had three kids at the time and two guys and we were beach body coaches and we were really into health and fitness and we just wanted to spread that to guys. We just wanted to spread that passion to guys, not necessarily with the beach body products, but just the enthusiasm of fitness and nutrition and feeling good. And so we created a podcast called the Fit Men Movement. We had t-shirts and everything and we interviewed everyone from supplement companies to Beachbody trainers like Tony Horton and other fitness guys in the industry, and it was a good time. It was a fun period of time.
Wow, I only found out about it today before we started this recording. But let's just get back to why we're sitting down to talk today. For those who don't know you at all, they can find out more on LinkedIn and online. But in the way of introduction, I just want to say that Jared is, in my eyes, first of all, is a farmer, a person of immense integrity. He is the owner of six businesses and he is a father to five children. You will need to fill in the details. Tell us more. What businesses you have?
But
A little bit more about your little munchkins. Who are you?
So the word integrity means a lot to me. So I thank you for that because integrity is, I think of my grandfather when I think of integrity. He was a man, not to minimize my parents at all, but he was a man that epitomized integrity. So when I'm compared with that word, it compares me with him, and that's a huge honor. So I thank you for that. The funny part about that is that all like my brother-in-law, who was actually a dairy farmer, has always teased me that I'm not a true farmer. And I've never, yes, I know. And turf grass in itself is a crop. We have fields, we have acres, we have tractors, we have equipment and everything. And yet it stands outside the norm of what normal agriculture is perceived to be with cows or horses or cash crops or anything like that. So while I have always seen myself as a farmer locally and in the farming community, it still kind of is set outside of those definitions.
Oh, interesting. Wow. But did okay, just carry on. There's many questions. I guess I had okay, I'll just ask the question. Um, did it feel like, did it ever like bugged you basically? Or you were like, no, this is totally farming.
Uh, I think 50-50. To say that it never kind of irked me a little bit is, because you want to, especially as a kid, you want to fit in, you want to have a crowd, you want to, have relatability with the others. And yet there's something very, as you grow up and you mature a little bit, you start to understand there's something very unique about doing something original, doing something that no one else is doing, and having a knowledge base and a day-to-day operation that not a lot of people know about, or not that is it's outside that norm. And so that kind of defines you. That kind of becomes your story.
Hmm.
Mhm.
And is that the kind of the main or the longest standing business? Give us an kind of like overview. How is it? How do other businesses fit in when they started what they are? Kind of so we have an idea of the whole like ecosystem or everything you have in your plate as the business owner, as an entrepreneur.
Yeah, so let me dive into that. We kind of went into a few different directions. So,
Yeah.
born and raised in the Pontiac, which is a rural area outside of Gatineau, Ottawa, on the other side of the Ottawa River. I am the fifth generation to live on our farm. It has been a farm since my great grandfather came over from Ireland. So we have been on the same property and farming the same land for a very long time. In brief, my mother, my father, and my grandfather started the turf farm operation. My grandfather did have some sheep as a hobby, and then they started the sod farm in 1977, which is now Mountain View Turf, which is the primary one that I grew up on and started with. We also have a company named Gemma Property Services, which is located in Ottawa, and it does outdoor property maintenance for government sites. So a few examples would be the Museum of Nature, multiple parks that surround Parliament Hill, and doing the works of trimming, grass cutting, floral, civil, waste collection, and snow removal, which is a lot right now. And my wife and I, so those two companies are currently owned by my sister Lindsay and I.
Mhm.
My wife and I have an egg farm that we started in 2009, which currently has 13,000 chickens. And it all started because we saw fertilizer prices going up and we wanted to transition to a more organic-based fertilizer, being animal manure, plain and simple. And so we started the egg farm, and now it's its own operation. We also have a Christmas tree farm, which is only 3 years in right now, and it takes about 7 years. So we have about 7,200 trees that are planted right now. There's going to be another 3,600 coming this spring. We also have a small real estate portfolio, and we have a family community foundation that we put the net profits of the businesses in, and that foundation gives money to local associations and organizations in the Pontiac. So those are all the businesses. Also 20 years married and five kids, ranging from 15 to 3. And big hockey family. So we have 3 in hockey right now. I'm an assistant coach to 2 of them. And in the summer we switched to fastball. So we have 4 in fastball and about to be 5 in fastball. I can't remember if it's this year or next year that Jasper, my youngest, can go in. So it's a busy life. Love and then still love playing music. I play fiddle, guitar, mandolin, love singing, and love outdoor activities. And then fitness and exercise, obviously. So that's me in a nutshell.
That's a very full life, and full life, and also I would say for me, it's a very different life. It's definitely very different life from me personally, like on all fronts, in terms of business, in terms of growing up, everything. So it's completely fascinating. Like it's not about fitting in. Like I do like to hang out with people who like exactly the same and they get me and they have, but it's not always as interesting as talking to people who live almost like completely different lives. And on one hand, we have some intersections that we get each other, like in some mindset and sports and just interest, like in life and people. But other than that, when I listen to your story, I'm just like, wow, it's so cool to know a guy like this. And I just want to quickly clarify about integrity, what I mean by it, because for the longest time, I kind of didn't understand the word integrity. When I heard the word integrity, I was like, what does it even mean? It sounded like some kind of like moral judgment about something, But what I mean is that being truthful and being real and being truthful to yourself, So kind of like being the person that I don't know if you're like meant to be, but you're the best. Like just there is a wholeness, like I think about integrity is like integrity of the airplane. There is
Mm.
like, like
Hmm.
engineering integrity. And it's even hard for me to explain how I get that sense from people. It's almost like an energetic feel when I talk to people and interact with people. Like I can very quickly sense when even the people doing everything right and they're great and they're like not hurting me in any way and there's everything, but there is a sense of almost like deception or lying like as if and it's not even malicious, as if like they're doing it for like to survive, to prove something, for some sort of reasons that, um, but they are not truly inside what they try to portray. And I can't explain it, but like something inside of me feels like, "Ugh, something is off." And then I encounter people with, integrity and truthfulness, and you're one of them. You're probably like, if I'm to write the list, like top 5 in people I met. So I
Oh,
hope you
thank
can
you.
handle lots of compliments.
That's
And on
very
that
kind.
side, yeah. So, and that's, yeah. So it's kind of, I was thinking about you as I started seeing your posts on LinkedIn all of a sudden, because I knew you from many, many years ago. And then I see that you started posting all the time, well, consistently. And I started reading your posts, which were very interesting. And how did you, yeah, so, and then we connected. How did you get into social media? Because I don't think that you've done that before,
No,
right?
this is a new realm for me. This is completely new. I've never been a huge social media fan. I've never been the kind to always scroll through, to doom scroll, to post all my stuff. I've gone through seasons where I've tried to, post pictures of the kids or stuff we're doing and everything like that, but n nothing has ever had a stickiness or anything that's made me want to continue, or see value in it. And there's a guy that I work with at our a marketing agency that we work with. His name is Brian. And we were chatting last fall, and he decided to give himself a challenge of posting 100 days on LinkedIn. And he was telling me all about LinkedIn, and he was all hyped up about it. And I never really knew LinkedIn as a platform. And so I'm never one to step down from a challenge. Wintertime is a good time for me to kind of reset. It's a time for me to work on the business and work on myself as the season winds down and everything. And so I thought, why not? So I started this process of posting once a day for 100 days on LinkedIn, and not even realizing what I was getting myself into at all. And it has been among many, but one of the biggest blessings that I have experienced, because all I can tell you from my perspective is that it's almost been like journaling. It's almost been like being able to look at my past, look at my stories, look at everything that if I was to take all my experiences and everything emotional and challenges and everything I've been through and take it and put it in a pile and go and sort through that pile and go, look how this one's connected to this one. And it's like, how much value is this one worth? And look at the lesson I was able to take from this. And I use that in work, or I learned this one at work and I use this at home, or it's just been such a satisfying journey. And the more that I posted, the more that I found my voice, the more that I learned how to properly tell my story. Just the more you attract what you post, right? And I've been able to surround myself with such an awesome community on LinkedIn of people that are of the same mindset, the same core values, personal development, growth mindset, wanting to find the balance between being more and doing more, and yet finding that contentment about where they are now and where they're at in their journey, even though they want more. It has been it has been such a great process. I think it was only last Friday that I actually reached that 100 days, the 100-day mark for LinkedIn, and now I'm in daily. Now it's going to be like 3 or 4 years every day. I can't wait.
Wow. Yeah, because one of your posts at the end, you said, and I'm looking today, you had, hold on, I'm trying to remember what you said. You can correct me. You said a goal to do so many podcasts this year.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So let me back that up a little bit, is that because you need to find a why, you need to find a purpose,
Mhm.
right? And so my purpose for LinkedIn was twofold. One is that I wanted to be able to promote our businesses a little bit more. I believed that just through posting that, people would connect with me, and people would connect then to the business, and other opportunities, business opportunities would just organically occur. I didn't want to DM, to message 20 people a day and try to sell or anything like that. I really just wanted to make connections. And the second part of that was just to learn and develop my own personal brand, knowing that I do have a story, I do have a bunch of experiences, And just to be clear, you said that I live in a world so different than your own. My world is very normal to me, right? And I still think I prefer to try to stay humble, but I still think that I live a very normal life. And it's kind of like, well, who am I? I'm just another guy trying to raise a family and run some businesses and learn as I go and make mistakes and try to make sure those mistakes aren't too big. And so I see myself as a very normal person. Um, but I still know that I do have some unique experiences to share into the world, and I wanted to develop that for myself and my story and my personal brand, and see where that could go. It was as I went into it, it was interesting to see that how many even the big businesses like Apple, you think of Tim Cook, obviously Tesla, you think of Elon Musk, you think of all these big businesses, and when you look at their CEOs actually have more followers than the company itself. And so it really does go hand in hand where it's like the bigger the personal brand, the better the company does. So it's a win-win situation.
Yeah, and very often, unless people already very kind of outgoing in terms of living out loud, as I would call it, it's not, there's a lot of resistance
Hmm.
to for the business owner to go on social media. And so for you, it was really stepping out of the comfort zone and
Oh,
it
goodness.
already like it and so you didn't go there for like I want to self-express and tell my story. It was like I know it's something I'm going to do something different. I'm going to learn from it and ultimately it will be good for the business, hopefully.
Hmm. Yep. No, exactly. And it has grown into so much more than I ever expected. I'm a very introvert kind of guy. I'm not a big social guy going out and, if I would much rather sit around a table with two or three close people rather than work a room, go into a room with 100 people and shake hands and meet new people and everything like that. I much prefer the intimacy of a small group rather than a large one. I can speak in front of large groups of people and I have before. But if you really want to see where I'm comfortable and where I feel at peace, it's really just having those really good quality conversations with a few people.
Yeah. I want to give our listeners, viewers, a taste of one of your posts because actually it's from today. And because it's in line with the introduction of who you are. I'm gonna read it. You wrote this morning, I was never the star athlete. I wasn't the top student. I wasn't the guy with a ton of friends. I wasn't the kid with a girlfriend. I wasn't anything that made people stand out. But I was the kid who stayed late in the fields loading sod while everybody else went home. I was the one working on Christmas Eve plowing sidewalks when I was supposed to be getting ready to propose to my wife. True story.
Hmm.
I was the guy in the office on Sundays alone finishing a $3.5 million proposal. And I've left and I felt it, I should have put my glasses on, and I and I've felt it in other ways too. When you have a growth mindset, you will feel alone because most people don't want change. That's true. It's like we can avoid it by all means possible. They want certainty, routine, and comfort. They don't want to disrupt the world, but you weren't built for that. And that means that there will be moments where you feel isolated, where no one gets it, where you carry things that you can't even explain to others. And that's okay, because standing alone doesn't mean you're on the wrong path. It just means you're walking a road most people aren't willing to take. So stay humble, stay hungry, and keep walking.
Hmm.
Like you, a lot of wisdom, a lot of humility, and a lot of insight in this post. And when I read it this morning, I felt like he was speaking directly into me. And I also then the second thing I thought, yeah, the growth mindset is great, but it still does not inoculate you, does not protect you from adversity, from horrible things happening, you know, and but it gives you ability to rise from that adversity. And that's actually a big topic for us today when we're like, what are we going to talk about?
Hmm.
We want to talk about shit happening. We want to talk about adversity and how you dealt with it recently, and how doing accepting that uncertainty and pain will happen no matter what is probably the best thing anybody can do for themselves. If you agree.
Completely. I would also like to add in there, somebody that commented on that was a good friend of mine, Peter. And he said, and it's so true, just because there's a difference between being alone and feeling lonely. You know, you can still be alone, you can still be on your own path, but still know that you are very much supported and loved by the people that matter most. And that's a big distinction. I when I was little, my mom gave me a plaque that read, "In order to lead others, a person must be willing to go forward alone." And when I was growing up, that just meant to me that leadership is being alone, and that is just that's the way it was. It wasn't until my goodness, I think I was in my 30s that I started reading it because I kept it, and it means that the key word there is willing. You have to be
Mm.
willing to go forward alone. It doesn't mean that you are alone, but you have to be willing to do things, to step outside of your comfort zone, to step into things that have risk, to step into things that are going to create pain, right? But as the saying goes, change only happens when the pain of that change is going to be less than the pain of what you're currently going through. And what you currently go through for pain can be very significant. And that's a good segue into what you're talking about for adversity and resilience and all that and the challenges that we've had over the past couple of years.
Yeah. Yeah. So, how do those challenges start? Do they hit kind of one by suddenly? Like, give us the timeline and kind of go into as many details or as little details as you feel comfortable about, like what happened.
Yeah, sure. So just to brief everyone though, this is going to sound like a Greek tragedy. This is just going to be one of those things where it just goes on and on and on. We have a we have a saying on the farm here where it's like if you've ever had one of those days where it's like, oh, it happens in threes, or it's like, oh, the hits just keep on coming, and it's
Yeah,
like,
it's a perfect. I think that if I take it, and we're keeping everybody in suspense, but if we take it all like that list, we can put it like into this series of unfortunate events,
yep, oh, precisely.
which looked
Yeah.
unfortunate. That's different story how it, how that manure, like you said, fertilizer was
Yes.
used there
Yeah.
after, or is still being used.
So
So take it
So
away.
let's back up to 2023, so 2 years ago.
Okay.
When my sister and I purchased the companies, Mountain View and Gemma specifically, we wanted to grow those companies. And so any type of growth in a business, especially for us, our businesses require a lot of capital. I know a lot of the SaaS companies, they don't. They're more about computers and manpower. But in order for our businesses to grow, you have to invest in capital. Turf grass, for example, needs 3 years in order to produce a crop. So if you want to physically grow your inventory, that means you have to plant the seed. That means you have to maintain it by mowing and fertilizing and taking care of it, and you're taking care of that for 3 years before you realize that revenue on an income that's based on just previous existing sales. So from 2020 to 2024 and into this year even, we geared up. Gemma took on more government contracts. Mountain View purchased some farms, increased our inventory. And then in the winter of 2023, COVID really did a number on anybody that was working from home because, and that could be the whole topic on itself about, the conflict between working from home working in the office, the efficiencies, the inefficiencies, just the change in the entire structure that people had to go through and the uncertainty. And that created a lot of us. Unfortunately for us, administratively, it meant a lot of delays in being paid, not because we had done anything wrong, just because we were kind of caught in the crossfire. And we don't blame anybody for that. It was just a natural. I mean, you could take COVID in the market and you could do many, many theses, and people have, but it's just something that we experienced. So we grew as a company, and when you grow, it requires capital and cash flow. And then we had very limited income coming in. So we had to do intercompany transfers just to get by through that period of time. In the spring of 2023 in our area, you'll remember in Canada that there were fires all over the place and there was smoke all over the place. And so if you combine that with in the smoke, with the inflation rate, with the interest, there was also in the Ottawa market where the public works sector had a 3-week strike. So in our main period of revenue in May and June, we saw a 20% decrease in the market and sales instantly, which you can't predict. That doesn't matter what model you have. You can't predict a 20% decrease in sales. It was unbelievable. And it was just like that. So we spent the entire year of 2023 rebounding and cutting expenses and finding efficiencies and fighting for every sale and doing everything we could just to survive that without having to lay anyone off or let anyone go, and trying to maintain a good service and product. And it was just rough to try to navigate the business during that
Mhm.
time. Um, so we made it through that season. We did. It was very difficult. It was hard financially. It was a hard financial year. Lots of very tight. And then unfortunately in December of 2023 to end the year, my wife and I we did lose a baby number 6 at 10 weeks of pregnancy, which was just it was right at Christmas too. So that was really challenging. So that was our 2023 to sum up. Anything before I go into 2024?
Well, I mean, you soften it quite a bit, that which is probably good, that there was how much stress it was, not getting paid by the customer, on time, and not knowing that you can pay hundreds of people, and so there was like a lot of seemed like a lot of pressure. You casually mentioned we're doing intercompany transfers, but it was like I'm sure it wasn't just like, oh, let's transfer money from here to there. It was a lot of stress, from what I can imagine, that was happening, dealing with, like, you don't know if you can pay your people, and you're borrowing money and you're moving money. It's huge survival. Is that
Yes, and I'm trying to
true?
respect timelines and listeners and all of that, but there is you can read about, oh, you got to be hard, oh, you're gonna experience pain or anything like that, but there is something when you go through it emotionally that scars you and those scars last for a very long time. And even though afterwards you can maintain your composure and you can talk about it very calmly, and you can make it sound like it was just another thing, and I'm not trying to minimize it at all, because it was crap. It just sucked. um but at the same token, it was our journey and our battle, and it was something that we went through that was challenging. There were some positive outcomes that we'll get to later because of it, but the emotional turmoil that you're going through during that uncertainty is very heavy to carry, and you're expected to carry that weight and still maintain a normal life and run a business and day-to-day operations and have a family and be a coach and be a husband, all while carrying that weight with you day after day after day. And that gets very tiring. Mhm.
We
So,
just only halfway through the series of
so
unfortunate events, so you
yeah,
carry
yeah.
on.
So that was 2023. 2024. This is going to be really rapid fire. In February 2024, our mom was rushed to the hospital. So mom's from Nova Scotia originally, and her and dad have a house down there. They have a house on the farm here, and they also have a house down there. So while they were down there in February of 2024, mom was rushed to the hospital and ended up having emergency surgery, having a tumor removed, and was diagnosed with stage 4 colon cancer. So that was quite the week. In May of 2024, my father-in-law was diagnosed with esophageal cancer, so a cancer of the esophagus. Also in May of 2024, our main small roll harvester operator. So we have on the turf farm here, we have a machine that harvests the sod. So if you've ever seen a pallet of sod and like if you've gone to the store or a garden nursery and you see the rolls of sod, so we have a machine that does that, that harvests it, puts it on the pallet, and then we deliver the pallet where it needs to go. So our main harvester operator decided to become an electrician, meaning we were short of the role. You have to understand this harvester costs hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars and takes 2 to 3 months to learn how to operate. Um, and our company rebounded. I was the only one that knew how to operate the small row harvester, meaning that I was the only one that could operate it. And this machine runs 6 to 7 days a week. We had such a rebound in the market. So that 20% drop that we felt in 2023, it rebounded in 2024, and which went back to basically being normal. But it was so busy that I wasn't able to train anybody because it was if the machine has the capacity to cut 20 pallets an hour and the person learning it can do four, and we had 90 pallets to cut that day operationally because sod is a product of nature, and it can't doesn't have any shelf life. It was had to do. So that meant for the entire season from May 2024 to November 2024, I was the only one that could operate that machine. And so, especially in the busy season, that meant starting at 2 o'clock in the morning, sometimes earlier. That meant finishing at 5 o'clock at night, long days. That meant little to no days off. That meant little to no weekends, early mornings, evenings. That meant no holidays. Usually, my family and I take a week or two to go down to Nova Scotia. We weren't able to do that, and it was grueling. It was hard. There were mornings where I was starting to develop claustrophobia just to get into the harvester with the cab. There were times of self-doubt. I couldn't go down to visit my mom and give her a hug as she was going through chemo because of running the harvester. And completely, that completely broke my heart. And that was hard. That was really hard. And so that was our year. That was our 2024. And coming from the 2023. So we went through a lot of pain. We went through a lot of challenges.
I'm speechless. Sorry, I know you paused thinking I'm going to ask a question or say something, but I all I can imagine is you being like a prisoner to the harvester. Like it's kind of, and you can't do anything about it but continue going. Don't have the luxury of feeling despair. You don't have the luxury of breaking down. Don't have the luxury. Like it's just, on one hand, it's heartbreaking. On the other hand, I'm thinking, if somebody told you ahead of time this is going to happen, you'd be like, I don't think I can do it. Or like it's something that you like, that's why we're not meant to know the future. Because it's like, no, thank you.
I
Like
had no
how
idea.
much you just like that. The Recently I heard somebody say we can be our best selves in the times of the worst crisis,
Hmm.
or we can discover like what we're capable of. And typically when we're sitting right now in comfort, we're like, no, thanks, we're okay. We don't need to discover it. But life wants us to discover it. Um,
I would tell you that you know what you're capable of, but the what you have to do to get there is so hard. It is so hard. I'll give you an example. Um, every morning, 2 a.m., I would just drive out in a side by side to where the harvester is in the field. And before climbing into the cab, I would, because I could feel my chest tighten, I could feel my heart rate starting to go up, and I hadn't even turned the key on of the machine. So I would just have to turn the key off of the RTV and set my timer for 5 minutes and just breathe. Um, and that's it, and just breathe and until you could feel the tightness start. And I'm not an anxious guy. I'm not a guy that gets panic attacks. I'm not a guy that has anxiety attacks at all. My parents have always told me I have the patience of Job. I'm the guy that they hand the phone to whenever someone's on the other line is irate, and I calm the I'm the one that calms the waters. But I would have to, because without me and the harvester, the sod wasn't getting cut. There were truck drivers that were going to be coming. There were clients that had crews that had to come. And like everything was on my shoulders to get it done that day. I couldn't be sick. There was from May to November, I couldn't take a sick day. There was no allowance of being sick because we were recovering from the financials of 2023, from that financial reality. So we needed to turn revenue. We needed to have income. And so not being able to do it was not an option at all. And I don't know if that makes the resilience that much, that have to that much stronger. But boy, there were days where, because you always keep in the back of your mind, you want to, this is your story. This is the story that you're going to be telling. This is a chapter that you're going to be telling yourself, that you're going to be telling your kids, that you're going to be telling who knows who for the rest of your life. So it's like you better write it as best as possible. But when you have to force yourself to see a blessing, because that's you've read books, you've listened to podcasts, to always see the blessings and always look for the good and look for the
Oh, be
joy and
great
everything
at
like
the
that,
end.
right? And when you're forcing yourself to look for those blessings and you see it, and maybe it's my little 8-year-old girl, Gracie, playing fastball and hitting the ball and making it to the plate, right? And you're on the field and you're watching that, but you're forcing yourself to realize that that's a blessing. That's a moment that you should be happy with, but you don't feel that happiness. You don't
Um,
feel that joy because that pain and that stress and everything that goes with it emotionally is so heavy, but you still have to tell yourself to try to at least grasp as much as possible out of it. That's tough. And even though it's what makes you help you through it, it's one thing to say it, it's another thing to go through it.
yeah, that's very well put because intellectually, when we kind of understand it as a concept, but once we given a chance to feel it,
Hmm.
that's another story. Like it's, the concept in your head, but you can't, like you need to allow the pain to go through you
Yeah.
and
And I
come.
often wonder, I've been thinking about this as we've been prepping for this podcast. I've been thinking about, where is suffering a necessity for success? You hear so much about, let's talk about specific business success,
Okay.
where I can go up to somebody now in business who is a leader in their business, and I can see if they're wearing scars or not. And I might not know how they got those scars, but I can still see that they've gone through something. And there's now you have a relatability. Now because you've shared something emotionally that's been painful. Different industries, different scopes of life, but you've still shared something emotionally in business that you can see and you wear it. Um, it doesn't define you, but it definitely has changed you. But it is, and if you can deal with it the right way, which is a whole other segment, then you become better and your business becomes better. But do you have to go through that suffering in order to be better? Do you have to go through those emotions for it to really stick with you and now become a core value and do something about it so it doesn't happen again?
You want me to answer it, or do you want to offer your, could you offer your
No, it's almost rhetorical because I think
It's rhetorical.
it's very individual because you can't force
Yeah.
suffering upon people, right? And you can't say that, well, you didn't suffer as much as I did, so you're not going to be as successful. That's not true. There's people that are twice as smart as I am and doing absolutely incredible in business and haven't gone through my experiences. They've gone through their own, and at no point would I ever minimize somebody else's experience and somebody else's
Mm.
success because of it. That's not the purpose here. But the purpose is does one always lead to the other, and is it a necessity at a certain to a certain level? Is it just a stage of the journey?
Okay, so I want to offer a couple of my thoughts here because it's so multidimensional, the answer that it could be, right? Because there is, first of all, I like to clarify there's different types of suffering. There is
Mm,
there is like it's like with anything, English language specifically is very limited in terms of what the words mean. Like suffering means different things. And there is suffering that, let's say, like somebody is not keeping their budget, somebody is not having difficult conversation in their marriage, like avoiding stuff, avoiding pain or avoiding difficult conversation. And then they end up with a suffering of like broken marriage, broken finances, and they're suffering. Like, it's that type of suffering. There is suffering that you can do everything right and have difficult conversations and work with the coach and do all this stuff and then horrendous things still happen to you and you can be like, why is this happening to me? But in this case, it could be like an opportunity to upgrade and like learn even new skills. Okay, it's like I mean, I don't want to compare life to computer game because it's not, because
mm-mm,
it's not as linear. We don't just rise, we rise, and then there is like two steps forward, you know, one step back. Like it's not just all up, up, up. And but I think that there is some suffering that's happening for us and we can change it. It's I would say ultimately for me, I don't mind suffering is I just don't want it to be my fault.
mm.
So that's an approach that I take. I used to joke about it, because I big on health and fitness. I said like I don't mind dying, I just don't want it to be my fault. And like I will do everything possible, to stay healthy and not get sick. And the same with suffering. I find that the biggest thing is that I was like, okay, you know, and I didn't always accept it. Like I think I suffered a lot by expecting that if I do certain things or I achieve certain things or that I will avoid suffering. And it never happened and it was very heartbreaking. And then I finally, not that long ago, finally realized like pain and suffering will always be, no matter how great I am, how everything is lined up and I have my positive energy and I do all the right things, and things will still happen. It will be up to me how I react to it. So basically, if somebody is suffering, like you said, like you could have like mismanaged finances, missed some things, like kind of like it's completely okay. This is your fault, and you're suffering. That's a different type of suffering. You maybe don't. That does not need to happen, right?
Mm-hmm.
You could have prevented it, but you didn't. So okay, learn. But if you do everything right and things outside your control, like economic situation, political situation, like things completely like weather, it's you have no control over it, or somebody quitting, on in the business, and you faced with that, it's kind of like it's not your fault. People can say you didn't attract it, you know.
No,
Yeah,
no, no, no.
but at the same time, it's probably like I don't think we were ever given. I choose to believe that we were never given something that we're not able to handle.
And yeah, I was I was sharpening my kid's skates last week, and I've trained the algorithm on TikTok to only show me personal development stuff, right? But anything that's like a movie clip or is useless to me, I just not interested. So it's got to the point there where I've trained it to just show me personal development stuff. And a video from Alex Formosa came up, And it must happen enough though, because he commented about the stages of business. And in it, now he mentioned 6 stages. He only got to four, which I kind of find funny. But he said every business starts with unknowing optimism. So you start the business and you don't know anything about it, but it's cool, it's exciting. You want to learn. It's like look how much money they're making over there. I can do that too, and you learn and it looks fun and exciting, right? But then that you go into from unknowing optimism to knowing pessimism. So it's like all of a sudden you learn how hard it is to run the business and to manage the money and to manage the people and to manage client expectations and deliveries and service schedules and reports and it might not be fun anymore. And then he said that the third stage is crisis and despair, where something is going to happen in your life or in the life of the business that is going to be a time of crisis that is going to be harder than you can even imagine. And that struck me because it was like, okay, here's a guy that, I mean, he acquires companies. He's one of the biggest voices in the business philosophy world right now on social media, and he's making a statement about that. So it's obviously something that with his peers and colleagues and network that he has seen and talked about enough. What I do find interesting is he said from there's two steps that people take. The majority of the people see another opportunity and they look at another business or they look at something else and they go, "Wow, that obviously is so much better than what I'm doing." And they go back into unknowing optimism and the cycle starts again.
Mm.
Or they stick with it and they move from stage three of crisis and despair into stage four, which is now knowing optimism, where you know everything, you've experienced the hardships and the challenges, and yet you are different and you've developed systems and you've developed character in order to deal with that. The new level, it's a hard, what that level of hard was for you is now, it's not that what it is any less tough. It's that you are tougher because of it and you can deal with it better because of just going through it. And so that really struck me just about
Mhm.
okay, how often does it really happen?
It happens a lot because people have magical fantasies about how something in their life, either it's business or relationship or getting degree, will make everything great.
Hmm.
So I think it's definitely can happen a lot. And maybe you also need a little bit of like optimism and delusion to get started, because I heard actually people talking about that for the longest time they were stuck at a certain level of business and they couldn't understand why. And then they kind of dug deeper and realized that because they kept hearing stories of the adversity and suffering and people going bankrupt over and over to finally achieve that, success. And they didn't want to experience that. And they actually decided that it's like, I don't need to experience that. It's not true that everybody goes through tremendous suffering and bankruptcy in order to rise at the top of the business world. There's plenty of business stories, but they said like it doesn't have to be my experience. And it allowed them to like, so they changed the story because they just believe, but it's not true. Everybody, as you said, it's very individual. Everybody will have their own story. And I find in my experience with people, I feel people have different levels of suffering. Like definitely nobody that I personally know or books that I read avoided suffering on some level. But some people get very easy peasy flow in business. Like money just comes easily, like everything works, but then, they lose a child or there is something else, there is something else that comes up. So it's different areas of challenge. And maybe sometimes we don't hear very big stories of suffering because people I don't know, maybe people didn't tell them or they overcame it in a way that didn't feel like it was a big deal. So it's really, but I know that we just cannot avoid pain because it's back to our fitness conversation earlier. Like, can you grow a muscle or get stronger without pain?
Yes.
No, you have to expect that like reframe pain is good, but at the same time to always only believe that no pain, no gain is also, so there is that discernment, which part like you're establishing systems right now is to get ease and flow there to avoid pain. And so I think that's all I have in terms of philosophical existential thought on the subject of pain and suffering for
But
today.
you know from all of your fitness events that it's is when the rubber hits the road is whenever you're in the middle or three-quarters of the way through the race and it starts to hurt. And all you can do is it's a mind game now. It's pain management and it's a mind game forcing your body to take that one extra step, even though it
Just
hurts.
saying, it's fine. It's gonna
Yeah.
heal tomorrow. It's okay.
Yeah, but you still have to mentally push yourself through that pain in order to get to the finish line.
Yes, and I would say I would don't even use the word push at this for me personally, again, from my
Mm-hmm.
experience. I would describe it like I exit.
Ha.
I mentally check out. I am not there.
Mm-hmm.
I literally kind of feel like because if I continue pushing, it's just too much, it's too difficult. I find it's easy to kind of, I don't know, maybe it's dissociation or just basically stopping thinking or stopping feeling completely you're here and you're the one suffering. You kind of like, I almost start seeing myself as like my body is moving, but I'm like, okay, she's running. She's still running. I kind
Oh
of
my
become
God.
a witness.
Mm-hmm.
It's a little bit, yeah, it becomes more kind of, I guess it is a mind game but it's almost like turning off the mind game and
Mm-hmm.
trusting that your physical body and some other force and energy that exists that grows grass and grows chickens.
Mm-hmm.
Somehow I'm part of that nature and grass and chickens, and somehow like if I just don't interfere with where it wants to take me, I'm gonna finish.
Mm-hmm. But you can create the best running program and plan for somebody leading up to a marathon, and they can have the best nutrition and the best exercise and the best coach and everything, but you can't explain to them that the emotions that go through it until they go through it. They can,
Until they
there's
go through
there's
it,
no way.
yeah. And I actually asked a coach because I described like how yeah, it's interesting because some of the things that specifically athletically that I did, people said, I don't understand how you did it. You were not trained enough. You were not prepared. You shouldn't be able to do it. How did you do it? And I explained to the coach that I just kind of like, I'm kind of being guided. I mean, some other people being guided to free slaves and, liberate countries. I'm just guided to run marathons and Ironman. So, but I feel like there is some other power takes me there. It's like, it's not me. And I said, is it like this for all endurance athlete? Like, is that what everybody experiences? And he's like, 10%.
Oh, really?
Yeah, from his experience, I was like, it felt like a very kind of like spiritual thing, like the easiest way to describe. And he's like, I think it's 10, you're in 10%. And
Well, like I can honestly tell you, I can also say, I mean, I'm very much a Christian, believe in God, and truly believe that God has a purpose for me in my journey, and that belief going through those hardships was help to drive me through it as well, knowing that you said it before. It's like he wouldn't put me through it if he didn't think I couldn't handle it. He doesn't he won't give you more than you can handle, but holy smokes does he ever come close. Like,
yeah.
boy.
Yeah, it's called, it's interesting because just this morning I was listening to a book that mentioned the archetypes, like mother archetype, not like biological mother, but like unconditional mother archetype as unconditional love, and father archetype as a fate.
Hmm.
And it gives some examples of how it represented, like, for example, in Christian religion, you know, Jesus before crucifixion prayed to his Father God, like, please spare me. I don't know the Bible well, I just say what was in the book. And um, father did not spare him. And it's like the father there represents fate, and kind of that fate in terms of making you stronger, putting you into something that, how can the father do this? But it's not the father, it's the fate, and it's for the purpose of higher good. So it's interesting that you mention it right now.
And
So
when you look at the definition of that, and you and I spoke about this before, where the definition of fear, or the definition of faith, right? Fear, by definition, is having a belief, a negative belief about something that's going to come into fruition in the future, that's unknown.
Mhm.
Faith is having a positive belief about something that's unknown that's going to come into fruition in the future. So both things are about a belief into the future. It's just a matter of, is it a positive belief or a negative belief? And so you have to find a way somehow, no matter what you believe, when you're going through something like this, in order to maintain that positive belief that it's for a reason.
yeah, otherwise it's you get demoralized and you lose
Yep.
completely energy. Like
Yep.
that's the thing. Like it's just like if you think, oh well, you have to continue caring, because otherwise it's like, okay, I don't care, like I don't care anymore, or what's the point? And I've been there many times when it just like there is no point. Like, is the bus gonna like is this plane gonna crash or the bus is
Hmm.
gonna, like, you have those moments, and a lot of people have those moments. I mean, true suicidal ideation is a serious thing. But you would be surprised once you talk to people openly, how many people that would never say like, oh, I was planning to kill myself, but they kind of fantasize about something possibly happening to end this, because it's like,
Hmm.
come on, this is too much. And they
Yeah.
still continue going, but it's like, how much longer is this gonna last?
I would also say it's so important to have as well the strong people in your life that you can talk to. Yeah, and I mean it can be a therapist, absolutely. But I would tell you that my wife is a rock star and a saint to walk through this journey with me. My sister, so supportive, because I mean we went through these emotions of running a business and these challenges together. And even though I was in the field, she was still handling more on the office side and the admin side and the day-to-day, answer. Our team and our managers, stepped up whenever I had to be gone for longer periods of time. And so this, by surrounding yourself with those people and communicating with them, and instead of hiding it, you full circle, you don't have to be alone. You're gonna feel alone at times,
Mm.
but you're not. You're not. You have to wear it, you have to carry it, you have to take the action and do the work, to be clear. But you still have a whole bunch of people. I could go, the list could go on. I could go on with others that helped me through it. There was one guy in particular, halfway through 2023, that I was talking to. He had just exited his business, my age. Him and I had become friends, and he had actually gone through the exact same crisis and despair that we were going through, if not a little worse, actually. And he told me that it's going to be okay. He said it's going to suck, and it's going to suck for it's going to be hard for a very long time. And he didn't know how long that would be. He said it could be a year, could be a couple of years, if he only knew. And he said the good news is that when you come out of it, you are going to be so much stronger. You're going to be different. You're going to be changed, but you're going to be so much stronger. Your capacity is going to be through the roof
Mm.
for what you can handle, and this too shall pass. And it's going to be okay, and you're going to be okay. And boy, those words stuck with me so much that if I can even be that voice to somebody out there who's going through a tough situation, well, then you know what? It's all worth it just for that.
Yeah. And where are you now? Like, is it, yeah, like, are you kind of like on another side of that period of trial, tribulation, and despair?
So I am at a point right now where I am so excited. I am so pumped. This is so I you're gonna hear it in my voice going from that melancholy late night uh talk show host, right? To a level of excitement because the amount of things that I've discovered through these challenges is just fantastic, and the changes that we're making right now. So, um, let me give you an example. We have actually it was just started yesterday. We have a custom website that we've developed. So you said about things challenges that happen to you that aren't your fault. Okay, well let's look at the harvester for an example, right? Whose fault was it that we only had one person trained on this machine besides myself that and he was quote unquote the master of the machine that nobody else except myself could run it and we didn't have documentation or training in place or systems and training systems in
Mhm.
place to bring on somebody else. So whose fault was that really?
Well,
You
I think you
know?
need to look in the mirror, Jared, and be the
Exactly. I
person.
can exactly, right? So if we don't learn from our mistakes, what was the point of going through them? So now we're not only taking that, but we're developing a website where we're actually going to have our own certification process where it's going to take the user manual, it's going to take training videos, it's going to create modules and tests. So you're going to go through this thing, and before you even hop into the cab, we are actually getting a new harvester this year that is even more automated than the previous one, so it's easier to learn on. This one you could learn on in like 2 days rather than 2 months. Um, but before you even step into the cab, you're going to go through a full certification process at what we're calling Mountain View University. And so now we've created a foundation and a system where we can have, and it sounds corporate, but we're going to have standardized operations, for every part of our business that we can just add on. And it just doesn't have to be equipment operation. It can be
Mhm.
administration. It can be um, sales process. It can be conversations. Again, you don't want to become commercial because we still want to maintain our voice of being a family business, but there's still a certain level of efficiencies and standardization that we can accomplish here that saves everybody time. So this wouldn't have happened if it wasn't for this pain. One thing I learned is that and I'm going to go into the more of the farming background here. Our soil around the farm. So I was raised thinking turf grass was was not on the same plane as cash crops, where every farmer does a crop rotation. They grow corn, and then the next year they grow soybean, and then the next year they grow wheat. Well, they do that in order to help the soil biologically and also to decrease the pests such as weeds and insects in that crop, because if you grow the same crop over a long period of time you don't get that microbiological diversity in your soil, and you're giving a breeding ground for these weeds and insects. And so I was always told turf grass was different than that, that turf grass is a builder, and it is, but you still have to do crop rotation. And so now I have become one of the most passionate people about the soil health of our farm, to the point where we are now composting. And with what's called thermal composting, and it's going to be like a live compost where it's not just something that's breaking down. You're actually going to have mycorrhiza and fungus and everything, and we will be having the hundreds of tons of that compost. And I learned how to in the challenge. I'm reading books. I'm listening to podcasts about how to do composting, and we're going to be putting that on the fields now. We're doing cover crops of different experiments, different cover crops in order to create that break in the soil. And we've got cereal rye, we've got different blends. We're doing a lot of biomimicry where you never see one plant in an acre of anywhere on the planet, right? It's always a diversity. So we're planting anywhere between in our cover crops 8 to 15 different types of
So are
plants.
you becoming a real farmer now?
Yeah, I'm getting there. I'm actually getting there, right? The third thing that we're doing, and again, stop me because I really love this stuff and I'm really on a roll, is
Well,
one of
but
the
just clarify, how did you, how did it, why soil? Like, how did you realize that soil needs this?
because even though I live here, our house is smack in the middle of the farm. I mean, like our my house and the office is 50 feet away from each other. Um, you can you ever see a sign on the road And after a week or two, you don't see it anymore because it's just
Mm.
our fields. And again, we have a lot of fields, so not all of them, but the ones that were closest to home that have been harvested for sod for 30 plus years. I started to see things just started to click into place as I started to see them with fresh eyes from the harvester that
From a
there's a
different, so you
reason.
were not, because you were driving the harvester,
Yep,
you were
yep,
able to
different
see.
perspective. Yep, being seeing it every day. So I was seeing less earthworms, which is it's a funny thing to notice. It's like, huh, I wonder why there's not as many things. And then things start to click in place. It's like, I've noticed this field takes a lot longer. It should take 2 to 3 years to get a crop. Now it's taken 3 or 4. And there's a lot more weeds in this field than I remember there being 10 years ago, that can be a problem. Or the color's not as good and it's requiring more fertilizer than it used to. And all these little pieces over the course of months and months and months as you're driving around and harvesting and look, all of a sudden start to add up and go, there's something wrong here. And it's like,
Mm. So
there's
back to the
there's something.
necessity of suffering, right? Like then how can you, like system, when you mention systems, like it's more obvious, like, yeah, you needed redundancy in the system, you just didn't think about it, like now you have those redundancy in training. But with the soil, is that something do you see how you could have noticed the soil being in need? Oh, just kicked something under my feet. I have a skateboard, actually, is my I have a
Mhm.
skateboard under my chair that I put my feet on, so it's slided, so I don't know if you heard the noise of Zoom recording quieted it. Anyhow, so was there a different way that you could have came to that conclusion without needing to drive a harvester?
I don't think so. I think I would have had the blinders on. Not to be ignorant, because I don't consider myself an ignorant person, but just from being so in the weeds of the business from operations and day-to-day activities, I don't think I would have seen it agronomically had I not been on the harvester this year. From an agronomic standpoint, from a farming
Yeah,
standpoint. How about that? So to answer the question,
yeah.
no, I don't think so. I've thought about that lots, and I don't think I would have. I don't think if I had, I wouldn't have the pain behind it to propel and accelerate the changes that I'm trying to make it better.
Mm,
To
okay.
make it a priority and to now make it a part of my one of my core values to learn and implement sustainable agriculture, regenerative agriculture, sustainable sod production.
Yeah.
hmm And so step three of that, because this is the one I'm really most excited about, is
Okay.
that there's a book, if anyone's interested in this kind of stuff, Dirt to Soil by Gabe Brown. This is the book that changed everything for me this year. Um, One of the best ways and the fastest ways to heal the soil is through livestock. And so the ironic part is that in 1985 we had 150 sheep here. And mom and dad sold all the sheep because they needed more land for sod as the business was growing. And now, exactly to the year 40 years later, we are bringing back sheep. We were bringing back livestock and even some pasture pigs and some pasture hens. Now, even though we have a 13,000 hen operation, that's completely different. This is going to be pure multi-species paddocks. So meaning that you have all the animals together and you're grazing them, you're doing rotational grazing, intensive grazing where you're moving them around. Think about the buffalo moving from one area to the other, all in a cluster and then continually moving.
Mhm.
So we're doing that. We're doing it. Intensive lambing from sheep, for example, is when you're really pushing the sheep to lamb out so you can have as many animals possible. We're actually doing extensive lambing and extensive calving again, that biomimicry of nature where we want them to calve out and lamb out naturally. We don't want to have to help them. We want them to be able to do it themselves in May when the grass is green, the pastures are green, and it can be the healthiest environment as possible. And so by having that philosophy, we're really going back to a more holistic approach from an ecological standpoint of our farm. We're really going from a whole holistic view, a whole circle of not only soil management but good agronomic practices. And I am so excited to see it happen. And even if we make mistakes, because let's go back to Oh, come on. Unknowing optimism, because that's obviously where I
Yeah.
am right now, right?
You're beaming and you
Oh,
think
I
that
know. No, no,
nothing can go wrong.
I'm so excited about this because I know even the mistakes we make along the way and the frustrations that happen, that we're still going to be making improvements over the soil and the farm. And that ultimately that's going to lead to healthier soil, healthier plants, healthier turf grass, and who knows what else we're going to grow for crops in the future. We're just going to everything is just going to improve. And on top of that, because of the systems foundations that we're building, we're able to build these new agronomic practices with systems and structure to make it more sustainable in the future. So it's not just me doing it, we can incorporate it into who we are as an operation and a business. Too much?
No, not too much. I'm taking it in like it's you know what I'm thinking is that how difficult it would have been for you to share this story in the middle of that summer when you have to drive a harvester. It's not the time that we typically share publicly, or we even people want to hear because and probably I know that you mentioned it was even hard for you. You obviously was managing the best you could, but it was very hard to see like what good is it gonna come from this,
Hmm.
like, and why is this happening? And, you didn't feel fully loved and supported by your fate father.
Hmm.
But right now, this excitement of thinking how to describe it. That excitement that it wasn't for nothing. Making meaning of what happened. I feel like that just so satisfying. And yeah, so that's basically like what I'm thinking as I'm hearing where you are right now. It was not wasted.
Yeah, what I can tell you is that what that has done for me, that pain has transformed into conviction. And so where I might have let naysayers or doubters say to me, you can't do that. Here's an example. With the compost, we're going to be developing a compost extract. We're going to be buying a machine and it's a compost extract is you're taking your compost, you're watering it down, and it's almost like liquid fertilizer, except it's all compost and it's all the beneficial
Mhm.
microbes and bacteria that are in your compost. And you're spraying that on your field to add that biological activity to your soil, right? We're going to do this and we're expecting that we're going to reduce our synthetic fertilizer application by 50 to 75% and still have a stronger product because of it, right? If you had told me that a year ago, I would have laughed in your face because I wouldn't have done the research. I wouldn't have looked into it. I wouldn't have called people and farmers that I know throughout North America that are actually doing this on 2, 3, 4,000 acres of cash crop in Kansas, for example, and to say, no, this is real. This is how you do it, and here's what I've experienced over the past
Mhm.
5 years. Nobody is going to stop me doing this. Nobody, and that resolve and conviction is one of the biggest benefits of everything that we went through.
So part of the podcast, I want to hear the guests share answers to two questions. One is what is it something that you did or overcame that you thought was impossible, and how you did it, which a lot of it you covered and you can add to it. And also like what is that you really want right now and think is impossible.
Good questions. What is something that I overcame that I thought was impossible? Oh, self-doubt, a little bit of self-doubt, a little bit of naivety. It's one thing to say you can do something, but then when you're put to the test to do it, and even though I reassured everybody that no, I'll be able to handle this, there was still that part of me that wasn't sure. There's the part you knew that you had to, but you weren't sure how you were going to. Um, and so there was just to get through that. and the emotions and all that. I don't know if that actually answers the question directly, but I think when you tie it in with the rest of the story that I just shared, I think it does about what had
Yeah.
to be
Is it
overcome.
like the worst thing that happened? Like, is it like really that, what was the, maybe clarify, because there is a lot of stress on business and personal side, like put together. What was the hardest part?
Feeling like you couldn't escape, feeling that
Mm,
feeling trapped, feeling that you couldn't leave because if somebody comes and wants a pallet of sod and they didn't call ahead, I'm the one that has to go out to the field and cut it and load them, interrupt my day, interrupt my family, whatever, anytime.
mm,
And we needed to because again, we were recovering financially, which we have. But that when you can't leave ever, that weighs on you. Even it's like you can't even go for a drive to the city and back, which is now for us is an hour away. So you can't leave for 2 hours just to drive, even if
mhm.
it's for the purpose of the business. Nope, someone else has to go. You can't
Yeah,
leave for because somebody might come and every phone call you get that's from the office or something could be an interruption that someone's here for sod or something
yeah.
like that. So that continual that feeling trapped. And it's weird. 700 acres, we're in rural Quebec, and you like, how could you feel trapped here? When you can't leave your home, you feel trapped.
Yeah, it wasn't your choice. You were not
Yeah.
choosing it. It was choosing you. Yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
exactly. So that was the hardest thing to overcome. And I got so deep into that rabbit hole, I forgot the second question.
Now looking into the future, what is it that you really want and think is impossible, but you really want it?
I don't think anything's impossible.
You're you're
All
you're in the
right.
optimism state.
Yeah, no, no, no. My father always says I'm annoyingly optimistic. All right. Um, I really don't think anything's impossible. What I want in the future is for so many systems to be put in place, not to the point like no one's, if you put a binder together that's 3 inches thick of SOPs, nobody's going to read it. But I really want our systems to be foolproof because I know that when we put that in place, I'll have more freedom of choice. And
Mhm.
so if I want to take a week off with my family, I can. Maybe not in May and June. Um, but that freedom of choice is something that I'm really going for. And to create those foolproof systems, and to fully embrace the ecology of our farm. There is something there that I kind of you know when you have a feeling, a gut instinct, and it's not blind optimism. You know when you're on the cusp of something, on the brink of something, and it's going to change everything. And I feel we are on the brink of that. I'm not saying changing away from being a sod operation. I love what we do. And again, we have the other businesses with Gemma and the egg farm and tree and Christmas trees and everything. And I've tried to keep this story mostly for the sod farm portion
Yeah.
for to keep it concise. Um, but I think that we are on the cusp of something of growing a great product and also doing something incredible for the environment and our home farm. That my kids are the sixth generation and their generations is going to just be thankful for. I don't know what it is, but there's something there.
And when you say that, I have an image of kind of like a birth of something. And there is an expression that I heard that sometimes it's not the darkness of the tomb, it's the darkness of the womb.
Oh. I have not heard. There's not too many I haven't heard, and that's one of them.
Yeah, so I'm looking back at my shelf to even like see. Oh, it's by Valerie Kaur. Is See No Stranger. She's a political activist,
Hmm.
and it's very much like with using love as a force for social justice. And so I saw her speak at one of the events, and I haven't finished the book, but it's called See No Stranger by Valerie Kaur. Kaur. And she talks, yes, this is the one of her like key phrases she's repeating through her talks and she's through books to help people in that when everything is like everything that's happening in the world, all the injustice, all the wars, all the like everything, it seems so dark. We're supposed to be coming to the light and higher consciousness, and doesn't seem to be happening. It's getting worse.
Hmm.
And she's like, what if it's not the darkness of the tomb, it's the darkness of the womb? And
So
so
good.
I did not think about it until just this second, as you mentioned that you feel something is coming. So I was like, okay, so that you're now like, I start seeing that all your couple years of darkness, of all the um, high level of challenges and setbacks and just terrible trials, on all fronts, that was potentially the darkness of the womb of something new coming to life.
I agree with that entirely.
So what would you like to um, leave our listeners and viewers with as the kind of the closing? What maybe something wasn't mentioned or something you want to reinforce and repeat to kind of like you want to leave everybody
Let's
with?
bring let's bring it full circle with the loneliness and being alone
Okay.
in that it's never too dark. It's never that bad, and things get bad. I know things get bad. People have struggled and been in pain a lot worse than I have, and I recognize that. Um, but there is always a way through it. You'll always, this too shall pass. It always does. Just make sure that you are doing things now that can strengthen you to have the fortitude, to have the strength, to have the capacity to be able to handle it and then be able to stretch and handle more. And if you ever need that one voice that one person was for me to vent, to talk to, I know it sounds trite, but if you just need that one person to say, hey, it's going to be okay and you're going to get through this, look me up on LinkedIn. Happy to.
Yeah, and I want to finish with that too, that for people who are watching and listening, if they don't follow you on LinkedIn yet, to definitely do that, because there is a lot of inspiration, very authentic stories, lots of insights. And I know people started even asking you if you're doing business coaching, which you're not doing yet from what I know, but I definitely see it in your future. And
We'll see.
you don't have to. You're already doing it. You're already doing business coaching by sharing your story and sharing, writing what you're writing.
Yeah, I love business leadership. I love connecting with business leaders. I love all things business, finance, and everything like that. So at this point, I'm having so much fun just talking to people about their business, and it doesn't have to be anything more than that yet.
Perfect. And
Yet.
I look forward in whatever year or 2 years, how many years, checking in with you, recording another episode to see what came out, what new things came out on the farm and in your life, and continue the friendship, continue the stories, and continue growing and getting stronger.
We'll see. Here's my challenge to you. See you in episode 100.
Okay. I'll put it
Yeah.
in the schedule.
Yep. Yep.
I'm not stopping. That's it. It's,
Good.
this podcast, I have to say, because back to why, like why podcast. And as I just love hearing people's stories. I love connecting with people, and it's definitely I had kind of like this selfish way to like, oh, I just want a deeper connection and hearing people's stories, and then I can create content and share. So it wasn't really it's like a passion project. It didn't have like the commercial business plan about it. And I found it so far it's allowing me to engage with life in a very different way, in a very fulfilling way that's leading to some interesting opportunities, interesting insights, and interesting growth that maybe will reduce some of my suffering if I learn
Hmm.
learn more. But I was like, this is a different way of engaging with life, engaging with people. So definitely looking forward to episode 100. Challenge accepted.
Done. See you then.
Okay.